Welcome to this course on automatic control systems. Today's class is the first class, and it's going to be mostly an introduction to control systems in general, with some examples and some motivations. So let's start first saying what the problem of control is. In abstract terms, we can say that the problem of control is determining the behavior of a system using an accessible input. So if we represent our system in terms of a block diagram, we have our system. It might have a state. The system can be subject to noise, and we can observe an output. The problem of control is to determining the input of the system, that is up to us, so we can manipulate the system through this input signal. The problem of control is to determine what is the appropriate input so that the output is what we desire, what we want it to be. So a first strategy that we might think to approach this problem is what's typically referred to as open loop control. What do we mean by open loop control? In open loop control, the controller is implemented by inverting the system of interest. Let's see what this means. Again, we have our system of interest. It might be subject to noise. We want to make this output be what we want, and we can do that using a certain input that has to be determined. Well, the controller is this, an open loop controller is a controller like this block here on the left, where we have simply inverted the system of interest. In other ways, this block is such that if we inject into this controller the desired behavior, we get what is the appropriate input that we need to inject into the system of interest so that we obtain that as an output. So as you can see, this controller simply is the inverted version of this system. If you think with something that might be more familiar to you, using an open loop control strategy is a bit like using reverse psychology. What do I mean by this? I'm pretty sure that you two know some people who tend to do the opposite of what you tell them to do. So what is the approach to have them do what you want them to do? Well, you tell them to do the opposite of what you want. In this way, they do the opposite of what they have been told. That is the opposite of what you want. So they do the opposite of what you want. That is exactly what you want. This seems to work in theory, at least in principle, but it is subject to at least two problems. And maybe one problem is very well highlighted by this cartoon. In this cartoon, there is a kid setting a carpet on fire and telling the mom what Daddy said that he wanted me to play with matches. And of course, the mom calls the father and says, "Henry, get here and reverse your reverse psychology." So what is the problem in this case? That sometimes you apply reverse psychology and the person ends up doing something that we could say it's stupid, and what is their defense? Well, you told me to do so. So in technical terms, this is the first problem that we see with open loop control, that you cannot blindly trust your model. You cannot trust that a person is always going to do the opposite of what the person is told. So this is the first problem that highlights why open loop control is not the best strategy to control the system. But there's also another problem that is another very an omnipresent problem. The environment around the system is noisy. So there are some externalities, some external perturbations that are going to make that system deviate from what is its theoretical behavior that you have used to implement the open loop controller. So this inversion is never going to be an exact inversion, also because of some externalities that they cannot be part of your controller. So this is the reason why open loop control is almost never implemented. And if it is implemented, then there is also another additional controller that is in closed loop control. So typically what we are going to see in this class is not open loop control. Virtually every single controller that we are going to see and learn how to design in this class is going to be a closed loop control. So what is the closed loop control strategy? It's an improvement on open loop control. In this case, the controller implements a strategy that is based on the knowledge of the system of interest and also the desired behavior. So this controller is not just the inverse of the system of interest. It's a more sophisticated algorithm or a more sophisticated strategy in general that takes into account, of course, the desired behavior, but also is checking what the system is doing through its output. And so we have this feedback that is used by the controller along with the desired behavior to determine what the appropriate input is going to be. If I may give you another analogy, think of the difference between open loop control and closed loop control in these terms. Think of an environment that you know very well, such as your house, and think of what happens if you try to walk in your house that you know very well with closed eyes. If you close your eyes and you walk your house, even though you know exactly where every single object is, you might still end up bumping into things. And the reason is that if you're walking with your closed eyes, you don't know exactly where you are because you don't have a perfect model of the way you are walking. Sometimes you think that you have taken a certain step, but the actual step is a little longer or is a little shorter or a little too much on the right, a little too much on the left. Instead, if you are walking in your house with open eyes, then you are always reassessing your actual position. That's what your eyes are doing, and they send this message to your nervous system. And so every single step that you take, if you have just taken a step that is a little too long, well, the next step is going to be a little shorter just to compensate. And so you're always reassessing your position relative to the other objects, and you are moving accordingly in such a way that you can safely move in your house without bumping into any obstacle. So given this difference between open loop control and closed loop control, it's obvious that closed loop control tends to be way more resilient also with respect to unexpected externalities. If someone has moved something in your house, well, you notice and you can compute a completely new trajectory that is given and based on this new information.